Good evening. This Town of Adams Board of Selectmen meeting is now called to order on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. I do want to note that I am aware that this meeting is being recorded by both Northern Berkshire Community Television and being televised live on channel 1303. It is also being recorded by Administrative Assistant Stephanie Melito, who is taking minutes. If there is anybody else who is planning to record, thank you. I believe that is iBerkshires. We will reflect that, and that is who in the background?
Berkshire Eagle, please.
Berkshire Eagle. Thank you very much. Anyone else who plans to record any part of the meeting? Okay, thank you very much. With all of that said, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Nice full room. Sounds good, that pledge. All right. On our agenda, we did have two public hearings scheduled. Item A, the National Grid Utility Poll for 119 Commercial Street will continue as posted on our agenda. And item B, the Stormwater Bylaw, I inadvertently left that on the agenda, but that is an item that we will take up in the summer, not at today's meeting. So the only public hearing that we will be going into is for the National Grid Utility Poll for 119 Commercial Street. I do need a motion from the board to go into the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to go into public hearing for the National Grid Utility Pole, 119 Commercial Street.
I have a motion by Member Duval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Blanchard. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That is unanimous. So we are in a public hearing. I will note that this was advertised, and I do believe that we have some folks here from National Grid. Thank you. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and then introducing the topic to the board.
Hello, my name is Michael Tatro. I'm representing National Grid. What we'd like to do at the corner of Commercial and Pearl, the tap that goes down Pearl Street was supported by a guy across the street in 110 Commercial that was in a tree. That tree died. The property owner cut it down. He doesn't want us to put a pole in his yard. The town takes that nice new sidewalk and retaining wall. I discussed it with the DPW, and our other option was on Pearl Street. We can put a pole there and back guy it. So that's what I'm trying to get permission for.
Thank you. So, Michael, I'll open up to the board to ask any questions of you, and then after that, I will open it up to the audience to ask any questions that they may have, as we have notified the neighbors as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, anyone from the board have any questions for Michael regarding the poll for 119 Commercial?
I just have a quick question. Is that the tact you take on most of the positions? The neighbor didn't want it on his yard, so did you give in to him, or did you just see that this was a viable alternative?
Well, it was a good alternative, and the sidewalk in that retaining wall was brand new. It was nice. We could fit it in there on the town take, but it would be on the sidewalk with a sidewalk anchor going either into the retaining wall or also in the sidewalk. And
Yep.
I mean, it's a nice passageway there. So I
Okay,
thought,
that's all I have.
Do you mind going back, and I apologize to everybody, just the reason again for the pole replacement? It's a replacement, correct?
well,
Or an additional pole?
currently it's guyed into a tree on the property of 110 Commercial.
And that wasn't taken care of during the Route 8 project?
No, that tree died, and he had it cut down into where our guy is.
Okay.
And I tried to negotiate with the property owner and tell him we'll take care of the tree and get everything out of there. We just wanted to put a smaller pole closer to the retaining wall, but that would also have to be anchored. And Our other option, the sidewalk, which was, I mean, that was a nice project. It looked, we didn't really want to disturb that. And the town, the DPW, they were involved. They agreed with that probably wasn't a good location. So we went across the street.
Okay, and the owner across the street, any concerns by them? I'm not sure if they're here, we'll listen to them after, but,
I thought it was a rental and the property owner wasn't there, so I haven't really spoke to him.
okay, I'm good.
Anything?
No, not until I hear some other.
Okay. So I'm going to open up to the public for any questions.
Great.
Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to ask any questions or make a statement regarding this? Yes, you'll have to,
The electric company?
from
Yes,
National Grid, you'll need to come forward. Can you please come forward and state your name and address? I'm sorry.
Joe Chiota, Chiota.
Okay.
110 Commercial Street.
how
Great.
are you, Mr. Keon?
Yeah.
I guess what I'd like to know is, are you gonna cut the rest of the tree down after you take your wire out? Well, I extended the courtesy of cutting it just to your wire, okay?
Right.
I asked the company,
Yeah, I can get
and they told me it was my problem.
a person to come cut the tree down,
You will,
the rest of it, yeah.
good. That's all I want to know, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Anyone else from the board have any questions?
I do know.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Fiota.
Yep.
Yeah, what was the issue with them taking down the tree?
The tree was dead.
Right, but what was the issue with them putting a pole in its place and keeping it there?
Put a telephone pole on my property, okay, which is not too far away from it. And second, putting another pole right into the ground near that wall. It's not safe. The wall could go down.
Oh.
And the tree was dead, and I had to cut it down before the wind broke it down and killed somebody.
Right.
So that's what I did.
And was there engineering done?
Well, I'm the engineer. The existing pole on his property is, it's too far out of line to properly guide Pearl Street, the run that's going down Pearl Street. So that's why we couldn't use that pole. We wanted to put something, perpendicular to the Pearl Street.
Well,
Okay.
the way the pole is,
Or-
your pole is in the tree, you're in an angle that it goes south. If you use the other pole on my property,
Right.
you would have gone an angle to the
No,
north,
and it would have been
a little higher.
and a little more of an angle. So we didn't, everything's getting bigger, the whole system, the poles, the conductors, the telephone, everything's bigger and heavier, and we didn't want to go that far out of line.
Okay,
That was the issue.
all right, thank you.
Anybody else from the audience, or is that it? That's it, huh? So the residents good, electric company's good.
Yes, sir.
Now Verizon was also put in a petition with you, is the wording that I have. Was Verizon part of this too?
Right, they're all joint owned poles.
That's the way it goes, right?
Verizon, we put them in, they take them down,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Okay. Anyone else from the board? No one else from the public? With all of that, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and then coming out of the public hearing, we are looking for an approval of the placement of the pole at 119 Commercial Street.
I'll make a motion the board approve National Grid utility pole at 119 Commercial Street as provided.
I have a motion by Member Blanchard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Duval. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Tatro. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks.
That brings us to public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to the Board of Selectmen this evening? Yes. If you could please come forward, state your name and your address.
Jerome Sokoloff, 12 Summer Street. I'd like to laud the work done over the last several months in developing, compiling, and reviewing the FY25 town budget in advance of its approval. Having attended all the joint budget workshops of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, I came away deeply grateful for the work done by department heads to limit cost increases and to ensure that those included were as small as possible while allowing for necessary services to be provided. The amount of time that the members of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen put in over the course of a month reviewing budget proposals and asking tough but fair questions and serving on behalf of the other residents of Adams is both impressive and admirable. Town Administrator Green and Financial Director Adel, in work that is often thankless as it is necessary, provided copious amounts of information and context and insight for the proceedings. It's truly a great display of a well-oiled machine of municipal administration. I make a living teaching and researching arts management, a field with a whole lot of overlap with municipal administration, and I spend a lot of time with my students on the importance of clarity and transparency and integrity when dealing with matters of money and issues of governance, and in my opinion, and based on my expertise, this budgeting process checks all of those boxes and should be held up as an example to follow. As a resident and a taxpayer in Adams, I thank all of you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Yep, please come forward, state your name and your address.
Catherine Foster, Murray Street in Adams. So I think Mr. Sokolov and I have maybe a little bit different opinions of what's going on here. I'm a little concerned about some conflicts of interest in this town. Christine Hoyt. You've been on the select board since 2017. You're Director of Member Services at One Berkshire. You're Secretary of the Board of Northern Berkshire Regional Emergency Planning Commission. You're on the board of MIIA Insurance, which is the insurance company for this town. Christine Wynn is a good friend of yours. And as I understand, you do a lot of personal things together, including with her husband. I don't know why you did not disclose that conflict of interest to the town clerk before you had any business voting on hiring her husband as the director of the Greylock Glen. That's just a huge conflict that I don't think anyone knew about.
So can I just have clarification? We're not supposed to deliberate, but you're indicating that the conflict is that she knew someone? Or is it because of her kind of positions, her job, her organization?
Well, do you think it's a conflict?
I'm asking the question, is that what you're saying? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that, because you rattled off some of the great things that she does, right? And thank God she does those, because we as a board in Adams, the members that get involved with state type committees and organizations really benefits the town of Adams, like I do myself. I'm on the BRPC, and I'm on other organizations, but I did not understand what you were stating, because you mentioned a few different positions, but then you mentioned...
I'm talking about cronyism. I'm talking about hiring your friend and not letting your fellow board members, not letting the citizens, not letting anyone in town know. There's a mechanism for that. There's disclosures of conflict of interest. If you even have an appearance of a conflict, you're supposed to disclose it.
Thank you very much. Town council would like to respond.
I appreciate what you're doing here, but, and I think you should know well about matters that require deliberation by the board are subject to the open meeting law requirement that they be placed as an agenda item. And you're violating this, and you're drawing the
I'm
selectmen
not a
into
public
it.
board member, and I'm not asking anyone to respond to me.
You're using this forum
I'm getting
to
up here,
invite
and I'm
them to
saying-
violate the
I'm
open meeting law.
criticizing
Point of
my
order,
government.
Madam Chair, can you control the
Pretty
meeting?
much,
Can you
town
control-
I
council is
have a right
responding.
to criticize my government. It's my First Amendment right.
You do, and town council is
And I'm not
actually explaining to your rights and ours.
I'm not
Thank you.
finished.
That's,
We need to have order in this
Right now-
meeting, Madam Chair.
town council is responding to you, and until he is done,
So I'm asking that the way to handle this so as not to violate the open meeting law, a law that you're familiar with, you're asked to place this as an agenda item and to follow the rules that the open meeting law requires
Not
when you
asking
make
that.
complaints against members of the government, okay?
I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking.
I'm
for
asking
that again.
that you do that, and I'm asking that this discussion end.
Well, I have a right to speak like everybody else does. And I'm not finished with my conflicts of interest.
Well, I think that's up to the chair, if the chair wants to continue with this or not. But I think that we're right at the verge, if not already beyond, an open meeting law violation.
The open meeting law does not apply to me.
It applies to them.
we won't
And
be
they
able
don't
to
have to
respond.
speak. This is my turn to speak.
You're raising an item that should be treated as an
As an
agenda.
So are you going to allow me to continue, or are you going to tell me I'm not allowed to criticize
Would you
my
like to
government?
put it on a future agenda?
I would like to finish what I was saying tonight.
And could you please state it in a letter ahead of time?
No,
As an
nobody
agenda
else
item.
nobody else is asked to do that.
We're asking for it to be an agenda item, and then there would be meeting material that we would
I
be
have a
able to
right to
review.
talk about it tonight. I have a right to criticize my government, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
So can I go on?
I will give you another 2 minutes to go on.
2 minutes?
Yes.
Oh. Are we timing everybody's or just mine?
I'm going to time the rest. We've already been at about 5 minutes.
Okay. So you have voted, Christine, to approve a liquor license for the Adams Theater. You voted to approve an entertainment license for the Adams Theater. And you're on the board of the Adams Theater. And I didn't see any disclosures on that either. We formed a new corporation in October. You told me in November on the 15th that you had not met with the Adams Ambulance Company, that you do all, no, the Board of Selectmen has not had any dealings. We work through our town administrator. But you have 150 pages of complaints against Adams Ambulance. 150 pages of complaints where you represented yourself as the chair of the Adams Select Board, without any of your other select board members even knowing about that. Jay, I guess you're gonna get off easy because I only have 2 minutes, so we're not gonna talk too much about your conflicts, your Berkshire Scenic Railway, the others. Amalia Giacino was hired as the director of the Town of Adams Emergency Management. Jay is the treasurer, you are the secretary, and Amalio is the president of Northern Berkshire Emergency Management Services. How is it that Amalio Giacino was allowed to be a part of the Ambulance Exploratory Committee, and he was allowed to have Adams Ambulance out and Northern Berkshire EMS in his company? Another conflict, another huge conflict. And John Duval, as you said, you do work for Berkshire Regional Planning Commission.
Sure do, very proud of it.
And Christine joined you on that board sometimes.
I don't work for.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I don't care.
Can't respond, I'm sorry.
I don't care.
I'm sorry, you can't respond. I'm happy to put this on.
You can for 2 minutes. I'm
And
not
you
taking
can't
2
respond
minutes.
because it's not
I
an
do
agenda
work for
item.
the BRPC. I am a alternate delegate, which is appointed by the board every July 1. Just to get information, that's all. Thank you.
So we will put this on a future agenda item, and you're more than welcome to come and present, but we do ask that you provide us the materials ahead of time, because it would be good for us to be able to respond to the mischaracterizations and the inaccuracies of what you have actually just stated this evening. So, but because it's not an agenda item, we cannot do so.
I look forward to that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else under public comment who wishes to speak to the board? Yes, please come state your name and your address.
Charles Foster, Murray Street, in conflict of interest to the previous speaker with my wife. I just have a few questions about the budget. What I've observed at the meetings, a little bit of chaos going on. I would like, we have a public meeting on your agenda here, at the budget meetings or workshops, whatever you want to call them. There really is no forum for public comment. For one thing, I believe that what you could do, you raise your hand and the director either recognizes you or don't. If you recognize you, you ask a question, you don't, you sit out. Now, problem with that, you have your backs to the audience, so if we raise your hand, you can't see it. Case in point, I've seen that done once. And the person raised their hand, you couldn't see it. Mr. Green was kind enough to pass it along with it. That person got up and spoke, and not shortly after that, everybody's screaming out of order. Who's in charge? I was confused. You have the boards, when I was on the board for 20 years, they used to meet separately at the beginning. You had a separate meeting for the board of directors, the selectmen, and one for the finance committee. The board voted first, the finance committee votes second, because they have the final say on the budget before it goes before a town meeting. And I don't know, any place I worked, if I spoke to a supervisor that Mr. Novak has been spoken to for asking questions, I wouldn't be working there any longer. And I have two suggestions. I would like to see some kind of public comment so we can get up and ask questions. I have a bunch of questions right here. Can I ask them here? Yeah. Can you answer them? No. You'd be in violation. Also, camera. The minutes don't do it justice. If you read the iBerkshire article about when this person stood up and asked questions and everybody was in the room was screaming out of order, there's nothing in the minutes from the iBerkshire article. Don't know if there's any minutes from the meeting because they haven't been posted yet. So, you know, if you have it filmed, what do? Throw the flag? Look at the instant replay. But there isn't. I'm just saying, I have a lot of questions that could be helpful. After all, I was on the committee for 20 years and an accountant for 20 years. I have a lot of budget and financial experience. And I have questions. There's even one account in that budget that possibly makes you all look like fools. And I don't want to expose that here. I can't do it in secret. I do have to come before a committee to expose that account. And there are other things similar to that. I would like to have a chance. Hey, I could go on the town's Facebook page and just throw all this shit out. Now I'm a conspiracy theorist, right? Well, that's all I have to say, and we have a lot to do.
Thank you, and we apologize at home for the cursing that just took place. Anyone else like to speak under public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to new business. Item A, the board does need to vote to close the town meeting warrant. We did open it 2 weeks ago with the closing of today, so we do need to officially vote to close that.
I'll make a motion to close the town meeting warrant.
Great, I have a motion by Member Novak. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Duval. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item B, the May 6th town election. I believe the town clerk is here to talk about the town election.
Haley Mazur, Town Clerk, 8 Park Street. The annual town election is Monday, May 6th. Voting will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I just want to remind everyone that voter registration deadline to vote for the May 6th election is going to be April 26th. It is a Friday. Town Hall will be open from 9 to 5 for that purpose only. Again, it's Friday, April 26th, and Town Hall will be open from our normal hours, 8 to 12, but the Town Clerk's office will be open an additional 12 to 5, in case anybody wants to register to vote for the town election. Vote by mail applications and absentee ballot applications for mailing is April 30th. That is the deadline. So if you think you want to get a vote by mail application and you want ballot, then you need to get us your application by April 30th. In-person absentee balloting will be May 3rd. It's a pretty extensive ballot this year. So specimen ballots are up on the website as of today. So anybody wanting to see all of the ballots, you can do so by going to the town website, going to the town clerk's page and clicking on elections. You'll be able to view them. If you're having a difficult time, please feel free to reach out to the office and we will be more than happy to direct you in that direction. All the mail-in ballots have been mailed if you requested one. We have mailed them out. Staff has done a great job doing that, and they have all gone in the mail, so you should be receiving your ballots in the next day or two, depending on the mail service. Again, if anybody has any questions about the upcoming town election, which is May 6th, please feel free to reach out to the office, and we will give you as much information as we can. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Any questions? Sorry. Any questions?
I know it's about the 4th time you've presented the information.
I know.
There might be some.
I think I'm done, presenting. All right, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Haley. All right. Under new business, item C, select a housing authority board member. I do see that Director Schrade is here, as well as I believe both candidates, just one is present. So just to remind everybody, the board did interview 2 candidates, James Settle Jr. and George Jacobson Jr. at our last meeting. And this is an appointment that is made by the Board of Selectmen, which was a change, I think 3 years ago is what we had here. So this evening, after having interviewed the 2 candidates 2 weeks ago, it is up to the board to choose one of the candidates to serve as a housing authority board member. Mr. Schrade, because I can't find it quickly, can you remind us of the term?
The term's a 5-year term.
It is a 5-year term.
Yep. It'll start May 6th. When's election day?
May 6th.
So May 7th.
Okay. And then it would go until 2029?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. What would be the board's pleasure with regard to the 2 candidates that we did interview?
As I wasn't here for the interviews, I'm going to abstain from the vote on this.
That's fair.
Madam Chair, can you remind me who spoke first and who spoke second last time? It was 2 weeks ago.
They went in alphabetical order. So Mr. Jacobson spoke first, and then Mr. Settle spoke second.
Okay, who's here this evening?
I believe Jacobson. Mr. Jacobson is here. I just was trying to find those. Sorry. Oh, there. So I guess that will, I don't know, Joe or John, if anybody wanted to make a recommendation?
Well, you have to pick somebody, so
Sure.
First of all, I'd like to thank both candidates for putting their name forward. After listening to both of them, I feel either one would be qualified to take on the role, but when I heard George Jacobson talk, he seemed like he had much should I say, filled-in resume with a lot of different things he did, involved in unions and involved with the working class people. So no due deference to James, who's sitting out there. I'm going to cast my vote for George Jacobson.
I'm sorry, George is actually sitting in the audience.
Excuse me then, James Subtle. Yeah, my vote will go to James.
To James, okay. So is that a motion to recommend James to the Housing Authority?
I might as well make it a motion. I'll make a motion to put the name of James R. Subtle up to be selected as a Housing Authority board member with his due date being after the election, which would be May 7th as stated.
With a term expiring for a 5-year term?
Yep.
Yep. And I'm just going to ask you to amend the motion to add Junior to the end of his name.
Okay, motion amended, so the name would go in as James R. Subtle Jr.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Novak. Do I have a second?
I'll make that second.
I have a second by Member Duval. Any further discussion?
I agree with Joe. Thank you for both candidates for being here the last meeting we had. Both were very good candidates. Volunteers is difficult given your own time, but I agree with Joe that James was the individual that came across the best to the board.
Okay. No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And one abstention. All right. Thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Schrade. Yeah, sorry.
No,
I didn't see your hand up.
I just want to say, on behalf of the Adams Housing Authority and the Board of Commissioners, I just want to thank you for making this appointment. What's really crucial, it keeps my board as a full board of 5 members, which is crucial, especially since if people can't meet, to be able to still have a quorum and be able to, continue stuff that needs to be approved every month. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, making this process very easy.
Yeah, and if I could state through the chair, George, keep on doing what you do there and keep your eye on the place. And once again, it's certainly no deference to you whatsoever. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to new business item D, Greylock Glen Outdoor Center construction update. Mr. Green.
So we have 2 presenters tonight. We have Executive Director Mike Wing, who is present with us tonight, and then on Zoom, we have Matthew Sturts, who's representing Colliers. Colliers is our owner's project manager, or also known as OPM. Matt, can you hear us okay? You're muted. Oh, how's that? Try that.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for the opportunity to address the group this evening. I'm joined by Ken Guyette from Colliers. He's our director of Colliers. He's also working on the project. I understand that not everybody in the room may have the best view of the screen. If folks would like, I can record my remarks this evening. Just wanted to confirm if that was acceptable, and I can do that if folks would prefer.
Sure, that would be great. It is being recorded by community television, and we do have 2 reporters in the room who are also recording. I feel like I should let you know that, as I've let the audience here know that information.
Sure, thank you. I figured it's a public meeting, it's probably best to ask it, but I will go ahead and record it to the cloud.
Thank you.
The recording of this student town. I'll go ahead and get started.
Recording in progress.
All right. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to present. My name again is Matt Sturts, project manager with Colliers. As Jay mentioned, we're the owner's project manager. Working on behalf of the town of Adams on the Greylock Glen Outdoor Center project. And so I have some remarks this evening. I'm going to begin with a brief overview of the Outdoor Center project and its status. And then I've also been asked to address a couple of other items. I'll discuss the quality of the workmanship that we're observing as the project has progressed. And I've also been asked to speak to the architect's role, the OPM role, and the role of the town project management staff on the project as it has unfolded. I do also have some time at the end for a QA/QC session or sorry, Q&A, not QA, QC, QA, Q&A. And I can answer any questions then, or if there's something that's unclear along the way, you're welcome to stop me, and I can answer questions throughout my presentation. So I'll begin with just mentioning who is on the project team. Locally, with the town of Adams, we're primarily working with Jay Reed, with Donna Season, also who appears to be on virtually this evening. Hi, Donna. It's Mike Lynn, who's the director of the Outdoor Center. Project team beyond that includes McClay Architects out of Waitsfield, Vermont, Colliers as the owner's project manager and the commissioning agent, as well as on the general contracting side, Suler and Zeppler as the general contractor. So the Outdoor Center is going to be a 10,000 square foot plus or minus building. It's going to serve as a public access point to the Greylock Glen area. The building generally includes a retail wing, it includes an educational wing and the support spaces to support that program, as well as a food service component and an outdoor terrace adjacent to that. And the idea is to capture the future Greylock and provide that as an outdoor amenity. The building is conceived to be net zero. It is well on its way to achieving that goal. As you may be aware, the construction phase is approximately 90% complete. The building is currently under construction. Following the construction phase, we will begin commissioning activities. That's startup of mechanical systems and functional testing of all of those things, making sure that they're working as intended. A punch list to identify any sort of outstanding issues, little things as you approach the completion of the project, close out, and then the project will conclude with final and restorative site work. Heavy construction equipment can damage installed work, pavement and other things. And so that's sort of the final step, is sort of finishing those items as the construction equipment will be demobilized from the site so that the existing work that's been installed is not damaged in the process. So it's anticipated that all of that work will be completed. We're currently targeting a date in August. I guess I'll use that as a sort of a brief segue into schedule. We're approximately 8 months behind the original schedule, and I'm going to say that there are 3 primary reasons for that. I want to note right up front that that is not due to attrition or otherwise slippage in the schedule. It relates primarily to permitting delays initially with DEP. Up front, we did spend an extended period to confirm with DEP's assistance that there would be no adverse impact to endangered species. There was an extended environmental review up front, and only with the assurance that there was no adverse impact with that determination did the project move forward. Additionally, we were working with National Grid at the outset of the project to determine essentially how solar will be integrated into the project. And up front, we worked with them to craft an appropriate load letter and size the project transformers. And as folks may be aware, essentially transformers and all manner of electrical switchgear is being significantly impacted by supply chain issues throughout the construction industry. So coordinating those items up front took a little bit longer than anticipated. And finally, I want to mention just the water, because it interfaces with what some of you may also be aware of, the Water District project. And so after reviewing the availability of water and when water will become available at the project site, the team determined that the simplest and most cost-effective solution to delivering water to the site would be to dovetail the completion of those systems with the access to municipal water through the water district project. And that's needed both to supply domestic hot and cold water to the building, but also to supply the fire suppression system. And without those two items, we could not get a certificate of occupancy for the building. Essentially, we want to avoid the additional expense of temporary fire protection and the complexity that comes with that, the need to disinfect the water systems and essentially commission it twice. So that was the decision that was determined to be in the town's best interest and the simplest to achieve. So I just wanted to mention that as far as the project schedule. I can pause here if there are any questions about anything that I've just said, but I do have some other things I can advance to. Are there any questions at this point, or should I continue?
Are there any questions from the board for Matthew at this point?
Not at this point.
Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just one question. You mentioned that the opening is in August. What does that really mean, the opening is in August? Is it going to be a certain day in August, everybody can enter and it's going to be open, or is it going to be a soft opening, or looking for more clarification?
We'll work with the town to determine exactly the logistics of that. I think that there's certainly an interest in getting the facility open as soon as it can be opened. But we do need to conclude the construction activities. It's not generally advisable to have construction activity going on with the public having access to the construction site or working around members of the public for safety reasons. But so we'll coordinate the exact timing of that. But certainly that's when we're targeting getting a certificate of occupancy for the building, and we would hope that it can be open shortly thereafter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. If you'd like to continue, Matthew.
Sure. So I guess one other item that I've been asked to address is the quality of workmanship that we are seeing at the Outdoor Center project. And I'm pleased to report that it has been exceptional. So I guess I would characterize the effort of what we're seeing up there from Soler and Zepka by the expression of attention to detail. We are seeing it. We are seeing, by virtue of the fact that the schedule durations themselves have not slipped, despite some of the other challenges we've encountered. We're seeing strong teamwork among the general contractor and their subcontractors. So that's encouraging to see. We have a construction representative on site observing work as it's being installed and working with myself and Ken, project management side, to do QA/QC review of work as it's being installed. And right from the start, we saw, as Soler and Zepka self-performed their concrete work, that it was of good quality. The sub-slab installation went in, was good, voids, clean installation, good housekeeping, always a good sign. And then as the building came together, a first step in our commissioning process was we did what's called a blower door test to test the tightness of the envelope, which is sort of the shell of the building. And we observed through that test that the envelope of the building achieved an extremely tight tolerance, even in excess of what's known as a passive house standard. So without getting too technical, I can say that this is the single tightest building envelope that I have ever encountered in the course of my career. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens through attention to detail, and that happens when you have a contractor who's invested in the work and who cares about the outcome. That's an incredibly good result. And so I'm going to give kudos to both the design team and Clay Architects for their strong detailing, and to Soler and Zepka for their really executing that to a high standard. They've been really good about asking questions via RFI, request for information, in the formal construction process, if there's anything that's unclear in the detailing, and I think that that's heading off a lot of potential issues. And really, again, it's been a strong team environment between the contracting side, between getting timely feedback from the town side regarding any kind of owner direction, and from the design team as well. We're also, I guess, I'll mention this one because it's a sort of an important aesthetic consideration for the project. The masonry subcontractor, Champlain Masonry, created several mock-ups to test different stone and mortar combinations for the fireplace, which is really going to be a central focal point of the design, to ensure that that met the aesthetic expectations of both the design team and the town. So really a lot of positive things to report about the quality of the build, quality of the construction, and the sort of atmosphere of the team. I guess I could go on and on, but I'll stop there and see if there are any questions or anything else that, that folks would like me to address as to the installed product.
Certainly.
Yeah, I have a question. No,
He's not on camera, but he's off to the side here. Yeah. Okay.
I'm no engineer in that, but is the building too tight? It's my understanding the building needs to breathe, and if it's too tight, you have to add in ventilation, a way for air to get in.
So, not being an engineer, I'll answer your question this way. For purposes of the blower door test, you're testing leakage in the envelope, so you deliberately will close openings. That the building will not operate that way. There is an HVAC system, there will be fresh air being introduced into the building as part of ventilation requirements that are actually dictated by the building code. It will inform all of the requirements. But the building itself, and I guess I bring attention to that because the building itself, the envelope, the shell of the building is itself very tight. But there will be air exchange by way of the ventilation system that's integrated into the building.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions at this point?
Sure. Well, I'll ask some questions. First of all, I concur wholeheartedly with you with the quality of the work. And what's surprising to me is Sully and Zepka, they don't really have that many employees, but they use every minute of their time working there, and they've done an exceptional job. And I spent a lot of time up there because I'm very interested in that, and I was happy to also see that a lot of the work went to local contractors like Adams Heating and Plumbing. So I think when people from the area do their work, there's a sense of duty and a sense of excitement and a sense of wanting to do their work good, and you see it there. One thing I was wondering, I know the delays, those happen, but because of the delays, was there any increase in pricing? I know a lot of the materials were bought prior to the building so that you could get ahead of things, because at the time of the starting of the building, materials were hard to come by, and the costs were escalating. So, so were you able to, you know, it says here, because I like to look at things before I come to a meeting, and I know that you're a very reputable OPM, one of the best, and I was just wondering, one thing that's bothered with me is to complete on time, and we're running late. You gave the reasons and they're valid, but according to designs, my big problem with this is all of a sudden for net zero, I took for granted that there was going to be solar. And when was the decision made to curtail solar? Now we're looking at bringing it back in the carports, but I thought, you know, that's kind of, you know, what we're looking for is alternative energy sources within this project, and I think that solar certainly meets that criteria and makes that building extra special. So when did they come to the decision, because it surprised me when we had to allocate $25,000 for a study to put a carport, and then the group, I forget the name, will do the work, but then we're going to have to pay a lease on the energy that they're, making, and that doesn't seem right to me. We own a building, and we're going to end up paying, a lease agreement for solar. So when and why was that left out? I was told that the carrying capacity wasn't good for that, but the reveal is so good on that face of that first building, where the carports, the reveal isn't really so good because of the, the design of the parking lot. So I was just interested in that, and because it says according to the designs, and I don't know when those designs changed to curtail solar. And it just came to light to me a few meetings ago when I was told that, Town Administrator Green says, well, we'll still be net zero without them. But what is your take on that?
Sure, I'll try to answer. There's a couple of pieces there. I can start with actually what you concluded with, in that the tightness of the building envelope is going to reduce the energy demand of the building itself and gets us a significant part of the way towards achieving net zero, as Town Administrator Green has advised. So the solar portion of this, and Donna, feel free to jump in if there's anything you'd like to add here. The solar portion of this, I think, was not originally intended to be on the building itself. I think that solar was going to be in the project, but I don't think that it was intended to be on the building. We did have a feasibility study that we commissioned to determine how best to integrate solar into the project, which I think is what you're referring to. And it concluded that among the most cost-effective solar implementations would be to put it on the building. With the project currently being under construction, trying to integrate multiple design efforts was kind of impractical, and the coupled with the difficulty of coordinating all of that information with National Grid, needs a load letter in order to avoid delays, because electrical transformers can literally take years. We're seeing on some of our projects. It was determined that I think the most viable way to realize solar on the project was to have it be a standalone procurement, and to make the project solar ready, integrate all of the infrastructure for a solar project into the project so that it would be prepared to receive it. One thing you mentioned was the carrying capacity, which I think is called hosting capacity on your electrical power grid. We retained another entity, Solect, who I think is who you mentioned, that is part of the power purchase agreement, who is an expert. As we were all sort of approaching the solar topic from our own perspectives, we each, I think, came to the conclusion that none of us had the whole picture about how to realize both how to plan for solar, how to achieve it, the different regulatory things that are needed in order to make a solar project real. And we wanted somebody who could oversee that entire, renewable moves, and could oversee that entire process, which is where Solect entered the picture and advised us on how to best make that real. Carrying capacity or hosting capacity is the ability of the electrical grid to receive electrical power that you would net meter, right? You install solar panels, and sometimes when you're making power and you have a surplus, it spins the meter backwards and it adds it back to the grid. I think that what it was determined is because of some of the large solar farms that are coming on board, particularly in western Massachusetts, the grid didn't have enough capacity to be able to absorb additional load being generated by the array that would be added to the building itself. For the kinds of loads that we're talking about and the kinds of loads that would be in a system that would be designed for that site. So I'm not an electrical engineer. Donna, please let me know if you think I've misquoted something, but I had on here. And
I would just say that when we were first talking to National Grid, and as you've outlined, Matt, there were a lot of issues in terms of capacity. And we had to actually expend $11,000 to National Grid to determine would there be capacity for solar at Greylock Glen. The other issue was we determined, with the help of special engineers focused on solar, we determined that there was not enough capacity, area on the roof itself to achieve net zero. There would have to be additional, freestanding solar panels or something on because there just wasn't enough area. The complexity of the roof design, as you know, there's a lot of angles on the roof. So that is how the decision making came about. We couldn't achieve net zero on the existing roof. We were going to be faced with another structural analysis because the roof was never designed to hold solar. I don't know if you remember, but when we got notice of the funding availability, it was scramble, to try to get the designs ready for bidding. I mean, that was a huge task to achieve. The architects weren't prepared for it. Town staff weren't prepared for it, but we were able to do that, put it out to bid and everything. But that was another major issue, was that the roof would have to go through an analysis. We thought it would hold the solar, but we weren't certain. So that had to be done. So it just seemed the smart decision was to have standalone solar carports, and those could be done later, not interfere with the progress and the schedule of the building, and those could be on a separate track. And so that's what we decided to do. If I failed to inform the board properly, I apologize for that. But I think, and I today feel very strongly, it was the right decision.
Okay, yeah, but the problem I see with that is that that's certainly going to make our electric costs up there more than if we had solar. I'm talking about just, where the rafters come down, there's very little space between them. So my carrying capacity wasn't just about electric, but I'm just saying to put the solar panels just on that very, it would be the southern reveal as you first come in on that particular roof. I really think that reveal is perfect. It gets sun the whole time. The angle of the sun matches the seasonal changes of sun. And I just thought that, that would help us cut electric costs because, electric costs are going to be a big part of that project. It wouldn't have made a net zero on our electric, but I think also that there would have been, paybacks from the government for putting that up and that type of thing. But it's not happening now, so I'm just going to stop with that. I would have liked to seen it.
The one thing I will clarify, Joe, is that the cost for having the solar carport is not about the lease. There's no cost to the lease. It's the construction themselves. That construction cost, obviously we wouldn't have the structure, but we would still have the expense of the panels themselves and all the electrical hookups and everything.
Yeah.
And then also, I still think pursuing the solar, we are going to achieve not as great, a price difference, but we are still going to get very inexpensive electricity for that building. And as Matt had said, given the efficiencies that are in the design of the building, it is not going to take a terrible amount of money to operate that building long term.
Well, I'm talking about the cafeteria and all the, the big electrical within. And I have a question too. I mean, I've haven't been made abreast of this. Do we have somebody that's interested in the restaurant yet? I know it's gone through a number of phases. It's been continued, and you put an RFP out, and then another one, and I think we're on our third now. Is there anybody that's bit at the restaurant?
I'd like to, maybe we could follow up at another time. This is about the construction and not the RFPs.
All right, then I'll continue on the construction. One meeting we had, Administrator Green says, oh, I know you go up there a lot, and I do, but I want to let people know that I go up there and I police the site and pick up all of the trash constantly, because I know that people who are going up there don't like to see trash. That's part of being an environmentalist. I go up there all the time, and so my reason for going up there isn't to be in a spotlight, and so that's one thing I want to say. And another thing that bothers me, the Conservation Commission okayed taking down trees so that we could afford a view of Mount Greylock when you're seated and looking at the mountain. But my feeling is that one of the main characteristics was to protect and enhance the natural areas around there. And I don't see taking down trees as being something that, person that's been in environment for a long time sees as a way of, keeping an ecosystem together. And that's another thing that, is bothersome to me. Conservation Commission, I respect any board. They unanimously said to take down the trees, but, and I just don't understand why we're building an educational and nature center and we're taking down trees to accommodate a view of Mount Greylock. I think a cognitive look at Mount Greylock and not just looking through branches when people are reading to, make them think a little bit. But that's here nor there, because that's happened. And I want to say that I don't know, we can't give at the end of any meetings unless you put it on the agenda. But I don't know why we can't when we attend meetings, because they've already been, put on for people to come and see them. So I just want to say that the Woodlands Partnership is very, very interested with working on a Greylock Glen. We just had an executive.
Is part of the construction?
What?
Is this part of the construction?
No, it isn't. I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Matthew or Donna, was there anything else on the construction update?
There can be. I guess I had on my list to review architect role, OPM role responsibilities, and town staff role on the project as well.
Thank you.
If folks would like me to get into those things, I can. I do want to be mindful of.
Doing great, Matt. Keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. So just speaking about project roles here briefly, the architect prepares the design documents, specifications, and assists with documenting of any changes due to either unforeseen conditions or different owner requests that may emerge along the way, different requirements that may either be determined or discovered during the project. So preparing sketches to assist the contractor preparing responses to formal requests for information, or RFIs, all manner of project coordination with both the town, ourselves, and the contracting team. And our architect also is part of the QA/QC process in reviewing all contractor pay requisitions. So every invoice that is received for the project from the contracting team is reviewed by ourselves and by the architects line by line for completeness, accuracy, and appropriateness based on the progress that we're observing in the field. So that's an overview of the architect's role. OPM is brought on to be an owner's agent, owner's representative. You may have seen both of those terms at various times. But our role in the project is to represent the town's interest as a independent third party. We're a central clearinghouse of information, sort of attempt to keep things organized. As Ken would like to say, we try to bring order to the chaos. There are a lot of moving parts on a construction project, a lot of complexity, and we aim to sort of be a central coordination party and try to keep all of that organized. We customarily lead weekly construction meetings. We call them OAC meetings, owner, architect, and contractor, to review all manner of outstanding items on the project and to advance anything that needs to be discussed as a group and chase things down and complete them. As I mentioned, we review all of the contractor pay requisitions as they come in and make recommendations to the town, to the design team on approving them. And as I mentioned earlier in the outset, we do have a construction field representative who is on site reviewing installed work and identifying any deficiencies, monitoring any safety concerns that we may have. We haven't generally had to talk to Solaire and Zepco about anything on the project so far, but we do like to keep a watchful eye on that because safety is priority number one, always in construction. I guess one other thing to mention is that there are, as you begin to identify and you want to confirm that the project is being built in accordance with the drawings and specifications, there are additional testing agents and other commissioning agents I mentioned that are often brought on board to ensure that the project is, that the materials are correct and that they're performing as specified. So one other thing that we do is we assist the town in procuring third-party vendors through what's known as Chapter 30, Massachusetts General Law, goods and services solicitations. So we've done that for materials testing or construction testing. We have the allied testing on board to test the concrete, take test cylinders and confirm that the concrete meets or exceeds the specified strength from the structural engineers. It does. And as far as the envelope and MEP commissioning, we want to make sure that the building's performing as intended. So far, it has exceeded our expectations, as I mentioned in my intro. In the coming months, we'll be commissioning the building systems, doing startup, making sure that all of these systems operate as they're intended, and just making sure that everything works. Let's see, anything that I haven't touched on that you'd like me to?
I just have
Sure, Joe.
just quick questions, and it's getting kind of late, so just a short answer. Did you find any risk assessments to proactively identify potential problems before they arise? Because you just said that you were happy with Solaire and Zepco. You didn't have to, interject something that might have been, something that was a risk assessment. Were you there on any risk assessments that you felt maybe needed to be looked at?
Our services on the project began as we were entering the construction phase. We began that with a pretty comprehensive review of the bidding documents, you know, the drawings, the specifications, some of the front end. And we look for that particularly on, you know, drawings that are identifying, you know, refer to the electrical and where trades connect. Or where the work of, you know, say the plumber and the HVAC person intersects is often where, you know, you'll have things that aren't perfectly aligned.
Yeah, that's okay, Jeff, I understand.
Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew, excuse me. That's fine, you answered my question. And lastly, you're there until the end with, like, when the fixtures come in and coordinating all of that kind of stuff, you know, for the foyer area when you enter. That's something that you're going to stay right to the end, and then there's a punch list that either is delivered to you by Sully or Zepco or perhaps administrators within our town. Okay.
We make the punch list, and we try to make sure that Sully and Zepco is completing all of the things that we identify.
Yeah, and once again, thank you for your work. I think we got a building up there that's everybody's going to be proud of, and I'm sure they are. So thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions from board members? No? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, Matthew, and thank you, Donna.
No, thanks, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna, yeah, you might want to stop recording that at this point, because I'm going to thank you and embarrass you. So Matt has been with us since, Matt has been with the project since day one, along with Dan Daisy, who's our on-site field supervisor. We had a meeting earlier this week with Colliers, and Ken, our principal with Colliers, announced that Matt is leaving Colliers. So Matt, on behalf of a grateful town, on your last project with Colliers, thank you for everything that you've done. You've wrangled a lot of moving parts together. You've kept us on track. And from the beginning, you and the Colliers team knew how much this meant to the community. And I can tell you that a lot of us slept well at night knowing that you were on the job. So take that with you as you move on. And on behalf of your client, we wish you the best in your future endeavors. And Ken, you did a lousy job trying to keep them. You should have kept them.
Yeah, it's not a very good job.
We'll expect the contract reduction later this week.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. All right, so under new business brings us to item E, ratification of Greylock Glen Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds. We do have a letter here from our executive director. Did I see the other letter?
Should be loose.
I know, and I think I put it somewhere.
I have it. I can read it.
It's this one right here.
Ah, I have it. Yep. Jay, did you want me to read your letter?
No, I can read it.
Okay.
I'm happy to.
And are we inviting our director?
Yeah, come on up, Executive Director Wing and Mr. Wojcik, come on up to the podium, please.
Okay.
We'll embarrass Bobby for a few minutes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you would like to take it.
Thank you. Dear Board, this letter is to advise the Board of Selectmen that Mr. Robert Wojcik has been appointed to the position of Superintendent, Buildings and Grounds for the Greylock Glen Outdoor Center. As provided in Section 10 of the Town Charter, I am pleased to present Mr. Wojcik for your ratification this evening. As the Board knows, this position is not only a new role for our community, but a critical one. As the Greylock Glen develops consistent with the vision that has been laid out, adequate stewardship of the grounds and the multi-million-dollar outdoor center building is needed. With the creation of this position and with the appointment of Mr. Wojcik, for the first time, the Town of Adams will have a full-time staff person assigned to perform Greylock Glen maintenance year-round. Mr. Wojcik is most qualified for the position, having 37 years of service with our Public Works Department. Mr. Wojcik began as a seasonal laborer in 1987 and worked his way up the ladder to working foreman. In the absence of DPW operations manager, Mr. Wojcik assumes those duties. To his extensive DPW experience, Mr. Wojcik possesses much-needed institutional knowledge that will create efficiency in his new role. He is already familiar with the grounds, familiar with its infrastructure, and familiar with the town's DPW equipment inventory and fleet. Mr. Wojcik already has the knowledge and relationships needed to make a positive impact and bring value to the position in an incredibly short time. There will be no period of orientation and no period of learning. In fact, Mr. Wojcik has already identified areas that need immediate attention and ideas to address them. In his cover letter and during his interview, Mr. Wojcik noted that he views the Greylock Glen as his backyard, having worked at Yeski's Orchard and Gould Farm as a teenager, and continues to spend his personal time on the grounds hiking and biking. He was able to articulate the town's vision for the grounds as an outdoor recreation hub and is committed to bringing that vision to life. In the time that I have worked with Mr. Wojcik, I have noted that he takes great pride in his work, has a genuine passion for the town of Adams, and has demonstrated the knowledge, ability, and skill to set the standard for the town's stewardship of the Greylock Glen. We are grateful to have Mr. Wojcik as a valued member of the town staff, and we are excited to welcome him into this new role. The hiring panel had no reservation that Mr. Wojcik is up for the challenge and will make the town of Adams proud. Once ratified, Mr. Wojcik will begin his new duties on or about May the 6th, 2024 at grade 11, step 7, with an annual salary of $74,900.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you guys down.
Thank you.
There's also a memo in the board's packet from Executive Director Wynn, who was part of the interview panel. Mike, I don't know if you wanted to speak a little bit about, or read your memo.
I'm happy to read the entire memo. To Jay Green, Town Administrator, from Mike Wynn, Executive Director, Greylock Glen, copy to the file, date March 8th, 2024. Recommendation of candidate for Greylock Glen Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds. Town Administrator Green, I am writing to provide you with my recommendation that we select candidate Roger Wojcik to fill the position of Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds for the Greylock Glen Outdoor Center. As you are aware from my review of his submitted materials and from his interview, Mr. Wojcik possesses all of the required certifications and some of the preferred credentials. Additionally, he has other credentials that may prove valuable in the position. As a veteran town employee, Mr. Wojcik is intimately familiar with the operation of town departments, particularly the Department of Public Works. This familiarity will allow him to seamlessly transition to his duties at the Greylock Glen property and to integrate the Glen's work schedule with any required DPW assistance. During his interview, Mr. Wojcik demonstrated passion and enthusiasm for the entire Greylock Glen project. He had already taken the initiative to inspect the property and start putting together a list of required maintenance tasks. Finally, as Executive Director, I believe that Mr. Wojcik's familiarity with town operations and his stellar reputation with his peers will be of immediate value to me. By bringing Mr. Wojcik on in this capacity, I will avoid the transition period of having another new town employee acclimating to town processes and culture. This will greatly facilitate my ongoing transition into my role. For these reasons, I wholeheartedly recommend that Robert Wojcik be selected as the Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds for the Greylock Glen Outdoor Center, respectfully.
Thank you for that. All right. So we have a ratification in front of us of a 37-year employee here of the town of Adams. Sorry, it was a little bit, it was a mouthful to say there. For a brand new position. It's not every day that a municipality gets to have a brand new department, brand new building, and have two of its first employees have over 30 years of municipal experience. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah, so I don't know what the board's pleasure is with regard to ratifying the Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds, Robert Wojcik.
I have a few questions, if it's
Certainly.
okay.
Sure.
Yep. I've known you a long time, and I certainly respect you very much. When you were a younger man, you were a hard-working person. I think as we get older and things change in our lives, do you feel that I've worked with the state for many years, and trail maintenance is tough. I'm not even sure how many trails. Does it just the Meadow Loop Trail? Others? Yeah, I don't know the trail network. What other trails are there?
We're responsible for all of the approved trails within the 1,100 acres of the Greylock Glen. That's obviously everything that's on the current Glen map, but it also, at this time, includes a couple trails that have not been placed on the current Glen map. So I don't have an actual count. I'm still getting familiar with that. But we have all the trails essentially up to the boundary of the reservation.
Yeah. That's going to work you to death. because that's very hard to do that. And I certainly am going to vote for you, but I particularly don't like the process when your immediate boss is across from you and a town administrator that you work for, and it just seems like some of the jobs are like a coronation, at least in my opinion. And it's tough for me because I respect when, you know, Crystal's your daughter, and it makes it hard for me to say stuff because Crystal and her husband I've known for a long time, and I've known you for a long time, but I also have to look out for the town when we have interviews that they don't seem appropriate to me to have, you know, your immediate boss, town administrator, and, you know, Mike interviewing. It just seems like, I don't know, and then the salary bothered me a little bit, but Jay explained it to us. Is it all right to continue?
I didn't know if you had a question about the procedure, because that could be addressed right now.
All right, I'm
Or are you just making a
going to
comment?
stop right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Because it can be addressed if you would like to ask about the procedure, if you would like to speak to that.
Sure, I appreciate Joe making the statement that we answer the questions about the salary. The only thing I'll note is that in the town's recruitment and selection procedure, it actually requires us to post any internal vacancy, any vacancy for any position internally first. Now, if we decided not to do that with this job. If we had posted it just internally, Mr. Wojcik presumably would have applied for it. And the presumption within the rules and regulations of the town, and I'm reading from section 2, paragraph 3 on here, is that town employees, when fully qualified for a position, shall receive first consideration with respect to filling any vacancies over all other applicants. So even if we hadn't advertised outside and just advertised inside, Mr. Wojcik would still be in front of you today because he's qualified for the position. Instead, we opted to advertise and cast a wide net and actually forced Mr. Wojcik, who had said that, hey, I really want to apply for this job, actually forced him to compete with other people as well. We had 10 applicants. The interview panel was myself, DPW Operations Manager Tim Coda, and Executive Director Wynn. Mike and Tim did the initial screened down the 10 down to 5. Those 5 were offered interviews. Only 3 interviewed for the job, and at the end of that, Mr. Wojcik was there. There's provisions in the rules and regulations manual regarding relationships and things like that. We complied with all of them. Crystal will tell you she was isolated from all conversations. Mike can verify that, Tim can verify that, and I would also note that of the final 3 candidates, all 3 were related somehow to someone within town government. We are a small community, and I will also indicate too that I've had, under my own volition and decision to do so, I had a conversation with our labor attorney about the process we follow this, and he took no exception to it. So I hope that to one degree or another at least addresses any concerns.
Okay. And lastly, I would like to see if you could work on getting volunteers for the Glen. I think that people use it very often, and if you could get a volunteer group, it'd be helpful for you because you're going to be saddled with a lot of work.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Thank you for that, Mr. Novak, because certainly, despite the incredible talent that he brings and the incredible level of fitness that he brings, it just took his bike up to the top of Mount Greylock this week. He and I are not going to be able to personally, physically maintain all of those trails. That was never the plan. We've already spoken with Tim Coda, and he has assured us that as available, we'll have access to staff from DPW if we put together a work plan to coordinate and schedule with him. We have access to some of the temporary labor. I've met with some of the other stakeholders. It is my intention to continue to maintain relationships with the Thunderbolt ski runners. They have every interest in maintaining the trails that they regularly use, and we plan on recruiting some of our own volunteers. This is not going to be a 2-person show.
Snowmobilers too, Mike. Don't forget the...
And the, yes, I'm sorry.
And the bikers seem pretty good. They've built some trails.
They're within the ski runners umbrella. It's the same group of people.
Well, I think there's some variation of the people within those 2 frameworks. Yeah, so I guess that's the only question that I have, and once again, it makes it difficult. This is a difficult, not so much the decision, but, you know, Jay just mentioned, within this community, it's, you know, everybody knows everybody. At least I think I know everybody. I've lived here my whole life, and one thing that's been bothering me on this board for quite a long time, and I want to say personally, I don't talk to the Fosters whatsoever. I've never...
Can we stick to the ratification?
Oh, okay, I stop. I just want to say finally that I've been tired of being my character and my reputation being impugned by certain members of this board and by others, because people that know me know that I'm not the same person when I'm sitting here, but I'm trying to do the best for Adams, whether people like it or not. So that...
Can I address the board?
Absolutely.
I just want to say, Joe, that I've worked in some of the harshest conditions you can imagine.
Yeah.
Wet weather, mud, dirt, you name it. I've done it all. I can outwork 20-year-old people.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I can say.
Yeah, oh, I didn't say...
I don't
well, you think, you see me working out
I
there,
know,
don't you? Every winter, I see you out there, and I'm shoveling right in the middle of the night, and I know that, that's what I said originally. You know, you're a hard worker.
You know me, Bill.
Yeah, I do.
I used to work for Margie Gould for years. I worked for Yeski's. I've done bull work my whole entire life.
Yeah, but you're getting older.
Yes, I am. Yeah, but I'm still in good shape.
Well,
I hope to be.
Yes, right. Okay, that's all I have.
So I had a few people also come up to me and question the process, and that's what you get sometimes. And in talking with Town Administrator Green, he did reach out to Labor Council, Legal Counsel, and everything was done correctly. The process that was used is the same process we've used for the majority of our hirings. There's no difference at all. Usually when you go for an interview, you're interviewed by your immediate supervisor and the next level supervisor. There's nothing weird about that. That's the way it works in the real world. So best man for the job. There's no question in my mind you are. So I support you 100%. I'm glad that you put in for this position, and look forward to working with you up there and making some great things happen. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
I'm very dependable and very reliable.
We do know that. We have 37 years of proof of that. Well, to make it official, I do need a motion to ratify the appointment of Robert Wojcik as the Greylock Glen Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds.
I'll make a motion the board ratify the appointment of Robert Wojcik to the position of Greylock Glen Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed or an abstention? That is unanimous. Congratulations to our Greylock Glen team. Excellent. Great. All right, so that brings us to new business, item F. I believe our next presenters are in the sunroom. The Adams Police Department, I believe that we had a recent graduate from the Police Academy, and so I will let, I think, is it Sergeant Ray who's giving the presentation, or?
Chief Kelly is on vacation this week. We let him go. So he's going to be ably represented by a couple of his command staff, Sergeant Matthew Wright, actually three. We have Sergeant Honorado and Sergeant Crane. So I'll turn it over to these guys.
Wonderful.
You stand there, Cole, completely, you know.
So last summer when you all ratified his position, you saw the green untrained form of Cole DeRush. Well, after 23 weeks going through the Holyoke Western Mass Police Academy, we have Cole will graduate on March 22nd. He showed great commitment and dedication to the program, and he actually finished in the top tier of his class. Cole currently is in the field training program right now. When he completes that, he's actually going to be assigned to under the direction of Sergeant Curtis Crane, who actually would like to say a couple words right now.
Great. And the media is here, and I think they want some photos. So you guys can come
Yeah, we just, if Cole completes his FTO training, it looks like he's coming to Midnights with a great group of guys, and there's no doubt in my mind, he's gonna serve, and I should say serve, and protect the town of Adams very well. Congrats, buddy. Thank you. Congratulations.
I'll just add a few notes. Greg, you can organize however you want the guys while I check, because this is just hot air anyway, and that's fine. We don't often get an opportunity to kind of talk about, frankly, some of the positive things that are happening in town. And one of many things that I feel are positive with the Adams Police Department is the fact that we are right now at full staff. We have a full complement of officers. We have a chief who just re-signed a 3-year contract. We have four very capable sergeants. Sergeant Malloy, I always forget Donna. 4 very capable sergeants. We have Corporal Baker. Corporal is a new position in the police department for at least New England departments. We're on the cutting edge of ensuring that we have proper training in a very changing environment with law enforcement. I hold a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice from one of the oldest accredited CJ programs in the country. That was a long time ago, and the landscape is changing. I don't even necessarily recognize some of it to what these guys have to deal with now and be trained on. So Corporal Baker is responsible for that training. He's responsible for keeping our staff fully equipped. We have a good budget. We met that, we had that conversation last week about it. And we have a nice complement of officers, and we have a well-respected detective who handles some very complicated cases. And I know Officer Cunningham's in here somewhere, hiding back there. He also moonlights periodically, too, in the Detective Bureau. We appreciate his time for doing that. In addition, I see Officer Strizzi back there, who's also hiding, although he's very photogenic.
I was like, could they
his partner is not necessarily photogenic. But we also have 2 canines, and at one point, even with Kumar on duty, we had 3 canines, and not a lot of cost to the taxpayer for the safety and the protection that our folks bring. So Cole, welcome to the department. I'm stealing Chief Kelly's thunder. I usually let him do that, but to the rest of the staff, thank you for all that we do. Be safe out there. Thank you.
Congratulations, Officer DeRush.
All of us, yes.
Yeah.
Because we're backlit behind the chandelier. So especially you, Officer Dirk.
Yep, right there in the middle.
Yes, in the middle. There's a toilet room behind.
Right on. How many more are in there? It's like a clown car.
You can do a 2-row thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you're gonna, I'll say it first. Now we can't see Sergeant Crane. Officer Stan just appeared without his cover. Thank you. Good.
Oh, come on, guys, smile.
That is their smile.
You step to that way. Thank you.
Town report photos? Is that what's happening?
All that time in that back room, sitting there and waiting to take all that abuse.
Congratulations. Good night.
Yeah. Yep. Wonderful.
You're up, Damon.
Yep.
This was added,
Yes.
should have it loose, okay.
Yep. I have it. It was in my mailbox. Thank you. Just give it a moment to. There's a lot of celebration out there. Do you want to take a 5-minute recess? We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Let them celebrate, take some photos, and we'll come back in 5 minutes.
Hey.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
For a cigarette. Well, stay away from it.
I know, it's nice to see him in the audience.
Oh, Dr. Sokolow.
All right, so we're back in session. And we are on new business. Item G, review and approve proposed bylaw change for the dog park, and Community Development Director, Eamon Coughlin. Turn it over to you.
So anticipating the opening of the new off-leash dog park area, or intended off-leash dog park area at 1 Cook Street later this year, we are looking, I think we need a small bylaw change, basically to allow the off-leash dog park area to be a success. If you look at our current dog leashing requirements, there are very, very few exceptions granted for dog leashing. Basically, if you own a dog in the town of Adams and that dog is not located on property that you own, that dog has to be on a leash. There are 2 exceptions: property owned or controlled by the Commonwealth, where there's a separate set of rules and regulations, or for hunting dogs when they're used actively for hunting purposes. So as I read this bylaw, it's almost like the town of Adams does not currently allow there to be off-leash dog areas, especially on property that it owns. So I would propose a very quick fix, and you can all see in the memo that you have before you. If we simply insert the words Town of Adams or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts into Section B of the existing bylaw, that would allow the town to establish a separate set of rules for the dog park area and allow for dogs to be off leash in our new dog park.
Great.
Which is the intent of the.
Which was the intent all along. Yes.
Yep. So just to restate, so this is section 14-3 of the town code. Dogs required to be leashed, and the exceptions that are listed there. And what you are proposing is to modify item B under section 14-3 to read, this section shall not apply to property owned and or controlled by the town of Adams or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where a separate set of rules and regulations applies. And the process here is, if the Board of Selectmen does approve this change to add the town of Adams to that section, then we would move this to town meeting for approval, because it is a bylaw.
Yes, we move to town meeting to ultimately approve the bylaw, and then somewhere over the after town meeting in early June, the Board of Selectmen would need to approve a separate set of rules specifically for the new park at 1 Cook Street, where we would presumably allow for dogs to be off leash.
Okay. Does the board have any questions or?
Just one, this doesn't open us up for other issues. This is property owned by the town of Adams. Well, Greylock Glen is going to be owned by the town of Adams. So.
It's actually owned by the Commonwealth with lease to town of Adams, and
Right, so it covers both in that sentence.
As of right now, dogs have to be on leash at the Glen, because there's no separate body of rules or regs that govern that. So this governs that. Should time go down and go on, and somebody wants to change that, wants to study it, the board can study it, and then the rules and regs could be put in place for the use of the Greylock Glen grounds at that time. That's how I would interpret it.
Yeah, as I see it, I mean, adding these few words doesn't open up. It's not like all town-owned parks, whatever, it would automatically be off leash. Special rules have to be adopted for each location to allow that. So.
I have a concern when we change a bylaw to be just general. Right now, it's the whole town leash law, except for a couple exceptions that you mentioned, which is most communities would have the same exemptions. Now we're going to open this up where every property can be discussed in regards to like fields, Glen. We've already had talk about the fields. So why couldn't we, just a question, why couldn't we just amend the bylaw by adding the one park, which we've done for streets? Certain streets are parking on one side and no parking, we do that. It's been done in the past. Why do we have to open this up instead of just saying for the dog park, this is the rules, and that's it? We're just gonna take care of one thing and not open this up to future governmental leadership, which could change other areas, other parks, other places that the town owns.
Well, I think, I mean, if we were to specifically exempt this one park location, I mean, we could do that. That's another avenue. But I think, we also run into some challenges too. We'd have to define somewhere in the bylaw what an off-leash dog park area is, that kind of thing. So I saw this as a kind of the simplest route to get to what we want for the park.
And we do have rules and regulations that govern all of our parks that do require dogs to be leashed or don't allow dogs to be on the fields, I think, for certain months or something along those lines, and their signage and so forth. So this would be a park that would have a different set of rules. That's what you're trying, I guess, to get at with this?
Exactly. A separate, specific set of rules to the park would have to be adopted by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
What you're referring to, Madam Chair, is the Board of Health regulations that prohibit dog walking on athletic fields, I believe.
Right.
That was done by the Board of Health 2020 range, I think. I have a former member of the Board of Health who I'm looking to tease my memory. Thank you. Thank you.
Good thing you showed up.
Yeah. You all done, John?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay, yep. I was just wondering, this is going to be fenced in?
Yes, this is the proposed off-leash dog area is fenced.
Okay, do we have any possibilities of lawsuits should dogs be in there and a dog turns and attacks another dog? Or will it be at your own risk that you're bringing your dog into the dog park? Because a lot of times, at least with dogs, like when there's a big dog in there and there's a little dog, sometimes, they don't blend too good, in other words, and animals have a tendency to turn quickly. And so I was just wondering if there's any liability on our part, being a town, leash-free area. Or as people go in there, is there going to be a sign, use at your own risk, or this type of thing?
All that is going to have to be decided by the board as part of the rules for the park.
All right.
What other towns have done, and my staff are currently working on kind of putting together a menu of options.
Yeah.
A lot of towns, require proof of vaccination for dogs. They don't allow any dogs that have any sort of previous evidence of aggression to be in these off-leash areas. And part of that is going to have to be enforcement from our animal control officer.
Yep. Because things happen quickly. I see a lot of towns, they're shying away from dog parks. You don't see as many. I don't know how many, do you know of how many dog parks there are unleashed in Berkshire County?
There's very few. I think I only know of 2 or 3.
Right, yeah. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
So what is in front of the board is to approve the change. If the board is comfortable with doing that, I would entertain a motion to do so, and then again, it would move to town meeting if we were to approve it here.
You'll see it also again on the town meeting warrant slate as well.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed bylaw change, the dog park, which will also be on town meeting warrant. I'll approve it to be put on town meeting warrant.
And if you could amend your motion to say that it would be amending Chapter 14-3 of the Town Code.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll add that.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? Oh, go ahead.
I would just like to know some parameters before we do this as far as liability and all that type of thing. So I think at this present time that I'll abstain, but I'd like to see it go forward. But at this time, I'm just uncomfortable with possible lawsuits and just want to know what other communities do in order to resolve a situation that might occur within the confines of a area where you have all dogs unleashed. Because there's a lot of friendly dogs, and there's some dogs that appear friendly, but they can change just like personalities and people. So I just worry about the liability that we may open ourselves up to.
So I think it's just important to note that if you don't change this, you can't get there.
Yep.
Right.
Because if you leave this language alone, we're building a facility that can't be used because of the way that the bylaw is drafted now. In order to get to the point where Mr. Novak is, which is a discussion as to the rules, the regulations, the liability, use at your own risk, this bylaw has to be changed. And that's why Mr. Coughlin has asked that it be changed in order to allow the discussion over the rules and regulations and those specific aspects that Joe mentions about the park. If this doesn't get changed, if this doesn't advance, there's no point in talking about that because everyone will have to be leashed in the park by operation of the bylaw as it stands.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that explanation.
So I'll vote for it, but prior to going to town meeting, we'll have a roadmap of, we will discuss it as a board, or for...
Well, you'll discuss it as a board. I don't know if you'll see it before town meeting.
I don't think we'll see the rules and regulations prior to the June town meeting,
Right.
but it would come back to the Board of Selectmen to establish the rules for the park.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
I'm not opposing, I'm just abstaining.
Abstaining. Okay, and the reason, again, was
Well,
they're uncomfortable.
yeah, with
Okay.
clarity of,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
All right. Thank you. So the motion does pass.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks.
So new business, item H, Northern Berkshire Events Committee and Adams Beautification Committee's Adams Spring Cleanup Day. Mr. Meswar.
Hello, everyone. Jay Meswar, representing the Northern Berkshire Events Committee tonight. I'd like to present to you this year's Adams Community Cleanup Day. We've scheduled a day between the Northern Berkshire Events Committee and the Adams Beautification Group, similar to what we did last year with the Spring Cleanup Day. April 27th is going to be the date this year. It's a Saturday. We have 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. listed. We'll see how many people we still have at 2 p.m. But we've joined together with Second Chance Composting this year as well. We learned a lot from last year. We had a very successful day. I think we had 35 participants last year. This year, we're hoping for the same, if not better, with a bunch of different groups and community members that have expressed some interest. We have a couple designated areas that we're looking at. Luckily for us, we'll be able to remove a lot of trash from some of the areas, especially along like the bike trail and such. But other than that, we're going to try to clean up a few areas. In particular, last year we did the train depot station and the Sale Park. We're going to hopefully hit those again, as well as the roundabout area by Renfrew Park, and also in front of the old, I call it the middle school, some people the high school, cleaning up around the park in the front there. So we've got a couple designated spots. Adams Beautification is going to be kind of running the show, telling us what they're looking for, what their vision is. We're hoping to provide some people power to try to get some of these projects done. And then Second Chance Composting will help to remove the compost for us, and then we'll be removing the debris, the trash. Last year we worked with DPW, so hopefully we'll be able to work with them again and get that all picked up. So we do have a rain date for May 4th, just to let you guys know. Last year we didn't have that. We got lucky. We had a beautiful day. The idea is to meet at the Adams Visitor Center around that 10 a.m. time. We'll have representation there to tell, shuffle people where they need to go. But hopefully we'll have a very successful day and have some fun. Any questions from anyone?
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And were you able to get in touch with Linda Cernick? I know that there was a connection possibly for that date to have an organization to help.
Yep. Okay. So we're in talks to.
Okay, so it's not
either them or us. Yeah. Okay. Someone's gonna get rid of the trash. Thankfully.
If it had been solidified, I'd say go ahead and say, but.
Yeah. No. Not yet. We're working on that portion of it, but.
Got it.
Yeah. Depends on the date. Hopefully we get good weather.
Understood.
But very good. All right, guys.
Joe, you had something?
I just, it's going to take place starting at the Visitor Center like last year.
Yeah, that's going to be the meeting spot, and then we're going to kind of disperse as needed, depending on who shows up.
Okay, and you said it's going to kick off at what time?
10 a.m.
10 a.m., okay.
Yep.
You mentioned the date one more time?
April 27th with a rain date of May 4th.
Thank you.
Both Saturdays. Great.
All right. Thanks
again. Guys.
Yeah, thank you. All right, under new business, we have item I. We did receive an open meeting law complaint by Ms. Kathy Foster. And I am asking the board, now that you've had the opportunity to review it, to refer this matter to Town Council for a response on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
I have a motion by Member Blanchard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Novak. Any discussion?
Just a question for Town Council. How many do we have that are being under investigation, being looked at?
I didn't count them up for tonight, but there's perhaps 5 or 6 that I can think of.
Okay. All from the same individual?
I believe all of them from the same individual, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think grand total, I don't know the period of time, but I want to say I think the grand total from that individual was 20 or 21. Those that Ed mentioned, I think, are open. I think the others were closed. I think that was the.
When I interpreted your question was to currently under investigation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you. So that brings us to item J, which is the fiscal year 2025 budget approval. Before we go into the various departments, is there any commentary, Mr. Green, from you or Mrs. Adelt?
Crystal can come up.
I think that's the first time I've gotten to say that at a public meeting, so.
And I was like, who's back?
This hour of the night for the finance director, she just jumped up and.
I had 2 cups of coffee right before this meeting.
Okay.
But hello, I do have I believe you have the most current version of this in your books, but I printed new copies for you tonight as well, just so you know and completely understand what the bottom line is that you're voting on tonight. So I will give you all those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Were there any general questions or comments? Oh, the media is asking if they could have a copy. I saw a couple hands. I was like, what's happening over there? Hi. Thank you. Anything? If not, we can go.
I do have a question.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I just want to make sure that she's prepared. I'm not sure she's going to answer this. So a concern that I have is the last year's budget, the levy capacity was much less than the previous 4 to 5 years that we had. Then last year's levy capacity, usually when we announce it when the budget begins, There's room, when we get the growth numbers over time until October, when the tax rate is set, it works itself out. But last year it stayed the same, and there wasn't much there for us to increase the budget before we had to do a Proposition 2.5. So several years before that, we were doing very well. And last year we came closer. This year, same story. We're very close to our levy limit. We're very fortunate that the school district did not have an increase. Or the Hoosick Valley, I should mention that, Hoosick Valley district had a very little increase this year. So we didn't have to go back and make any reductions. Now, if things were different and the school committee came in with a budget that normally 2 to 3%, I'll just say, then we would probably have to go back and make cuts, and then we would approve the budget, and then by the time October 5th comes around, you get all the numbers are in, then you know, wherever it lies at that point. So of course, really probably to the town administrator that we were doing very well last year, kind of tight, this year, kind of tight with that. We really don't have much more room before we hit that Prop and a half, so I'm just curious of what your thoughts are, and is there anything we need to do differently next year or two to start to work on that and give us some room there?
Sure. Thank you, John, for the question. Crystal can pipe in, but I'll set the stage. And municipal finance is a very unique beast, so I'll also give a little context for what we're talking about. Municipalities in Massachusetts are regulated by a law called Proposition 2.5, and what that means is on any given year, our budget can only grow no more than 2.5% over the last year. The difference between what we need to raise in order to operate the town and that 2.5% is the levy capacity. That moves differently from year to year, and some communities every year they go right to zero. Those are communities that what they do is called tax to the max. Adams has not. Adams builds its budget every year based on just what it needs to operate. One of the reasons why we're seeing that levy capacity begin to shrink is that each and every year it is impossible, and if you've been following the conversation with the City of Pittsfield budgeting process, they are having the same conversation. Essentially, as long as there are fixed costs in an inflationary environment, it is impossible for a community to offer a level funded budget. Even if you don't put anything in the budget that is discretionary, that is willfully saying let's add positions or let's rearrange this or that, you always have fixed costs. This year we have several drivers in the budget that we haven't had in a few years past. We have health insurance. We've renegotiated the DPW contract for new wages. We also have 2 debt service payments this year for the wastewater treatment plant. And there's a few other, we've added a labor with DPW in order to address some maintenance issues. And we've added half a position, which is the admin assistant in the inspectional services. Really, the only discretionary items in there is the labor for DPW, new position, and half the admin assistant position. Everything else really is fixed costs. The reason why we're seeing that capacity go like this, from this number, I'm not talking about a big fish, but to get to this number, is because the budget is not structured correctly. We've had these conversations before at the Board of Selectmen, and we've had these conversations before at the Finance Committee. Essentially, the town of Adams chooses to pay for its wastewater treatment plant system on the tax levy. No other community does that. If there are, we're told by our engineering firm that it's probably less than 4 to 3 in the state. The reason why we are becoming to see capacity constrained, which means that we aren't able to expand our discretionary spending or spend money in the budget for, say, road repairs or other capital costs that other communities are able to do, is because we have a substantial portion of our expenditures in our operating budget. Crystal can give you those numbers. I want to talk off the top of my head.
Between the debt service that we have to appropriate for the wastewater treatment plant, for the current existing bond that we have out that is finishing up this fiscal year, and the new bond that we are taking on in FY25, the operating costs of the plant and the personnel costs, it adds up to about $1.5 million, which is an approximate amount of $1.97 on the tax rate. So if you were to remove those costs and have that funded by a sewer user fee, as Town Administrator Green is getting to, and have it on a separate enterprise fund, that would increase our levy capacity by $1.5 million if that happened this fiscal year.
So to answer your question, John, that's one thing that has to be studied and has to be looked at. We've started studying that, but that is one way to do it. The other way to do it is continue to do what we have been, which is essentially we just don't add randomly items to the budget year over year. We're only adding items to the budget based on policy need. The municipal budget is a policy document. So in this situation, we're adding a laborer and we're adding an admin assistant to handle the workload that's coming into inspectional services. We haven't added a lot to the budget over the years, but we're required, and this board has said, we need to provide adequate services to our community. So the only ways to do this are to remove the wastewater treatment plant costs from the budget, find strategic ways to cut without impacting services, and year over year, don't add a lot to the budget. But that eventually road will wear out because with fixed costs will eat up all of our Proposition 2.5 limits. And this isn't just an Adams issue, this is a community everywhere. Proposition 2.5, that 2.5% was passed about 1981 or 1982. 2.5% was a lot more money back in 1981 or 1982. So that's the answer to your question. I think it's important, that people know that some communities do. I don't know if any do it in the Berkshires, but they just automatically tax up to that 2.5 limit. We live within the confines of Proposition 2.5. We are there. We are able this year to pay our standard costs. We're able to handle the debt service. We're able to handle our personnel. We're able to handle all of that this year. We're able to handle a DPW contractual wage increase, and we're proposing some modest increases in a few budgetary chapters that we went over the last 2 weeks, and we're proposing to add a position to address maintenance needs. We're okay right now, but I don't necessarily think it's bad to have this conversation because eventually that road, to your point, will run out. So those are the techniques that we use, but that would give us the biggest room in the budget to do that. It would also allow us to do a few other things that we've struggled to be able to do because we just don't have the resources to do.
So by taking the wastewater treatment plant and all its costs of $1.2 million, we're going to move it, right? It's not going to go away or anything, but we're just going to move it to where most other communities in the state, they have its own account, right?
That's correct. I guess for perspective, you could say that we would no longer be raising it on our tax rate. It would be in a separate enterprise fund funded by a sewer user fee.
Okay. We're not moving it. I said we're moving it, but we're not moving it. That's something to be discussed.
Funding it differently, yes.
It's something to be discussed in the future, which would open a more room to the levy capacity. We'd have more room to do that. The other concern is the Glen operation itself. Now, it's new. We've had to hire a few positions to get started. No money is coming in yet, operationally. So we knew that was going to happen. We discussed this the last couple of years. And even though one of the positions may be funded off the Economic Development Fund, in prior years we did different things with that fund other than, have that position there. So this budget here, we're adding on another position and continuing to pay the lead up there, right, Mr. Nguyen, right?
Yes.
He's going to be, right. So I'm thinking that's another reason that the budget has increased.
Yes.
Is because the Glen, we need to get the workforce ready for August or October or whatever it's going to be. And, but we don't have any operational tax revenue coming in. So the budget's paying for that. In our community, we do have growth, right? But the growth isn't so much, we do have a few new homes, we get that every year, but it's not in the meals tax, the lodging tax, which several other Berkshire County communities receive. I'll call them windfalls, but they, one of our South County friends, I think it's $2 million, or what is it now, $4 million, in regards to the tax money they receive from the lodging, meals, and alcohol tax. that is something our community, we do not, you know, we do receive it. We have a few eateries, we have a bar or two, a lot less than we used to have. So that tax revenue is not coming in. We don't have any new business that's coming in. So who's left to pay the bill, right? The taxpayer. And so we have the vision, we're looking forward, is that the reason why we're doing the Glen and looking for, you know, working towards restaurants and things like that, building off the theater to have restaurants, and because of that, which tourists pay, is the tax, and that's where we're going to see a benefit. Well, we're not seeing it yet. Mm-hmm. We have to invest before we see the reward of the tax, the meals tax, the alcohol tax, and the lodging tax. And Adams doesn't have, well, we have one place to, one motel down on Current Highway down there.
Yeah, there's Airbnbs pay into it, and I think there's two or three inns. I think our average lodging income is about $60,000, $70,000, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
So in comparison, just to extrapolate a little further on John's example for people watching at home, if a town receives, say, $4 million in lodging income, they can take that $4 million and appropriate it as they see fit. And some communities take that money and they put it into the operating budget, which essentially relieves the same amount of money from being included on the tax levy. Adams does not have that capability. We do not earn sufficient funds either on our meal tax or the lodging tax. You can distill the Greylock Glen down into a few different projects, but as John described, and he's correct, that is what the Greylock Glen is intended to do. It's also what our economic development, you know, conversations with small businesses have. Expanding the commercial tax base in general does that. So as you said, a few residential homes, that expands the tax base as well, and also small businesses opening up. So there's a variety of techniques that we are using to try to do that. But I think the main takeaway, just to highlight John's point, is that we are not in the same structural position or alternative funding revenue sources that other communities have. And those are things that we need to work on.
Yeah, and it's been a long time. And we've made the decisions over the last 10 years to move in the direction to be a tourist economy, and that's why we do it. That's where we're going to get revenue from that. You know, so the last question I'll have for now, and I'll let the board discuss too, is 2 years ago, the average cost to the taxpayer, what did that end up being for the average taxpayer, the average tax bill increase? Let's start with 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Do you have that data with you? I don't want to, not off the top of your head.
I don't have it with me right now.
Okay.
But I want to say it was in the ballpark of $180 to the average tax bill. And last year was about $260. This year we're looking at about $240.
Okay, last year was $260 for the average tax bill, and this year we're looking at $240.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you look at a snapshot over a 10-year period, we were looking at some of the data earlier. I think if you take about a 10-year snapshot, the average, over 10 years, average is about $110 increase a year.
That's correct.
Average over 10 years.
Yep.
Okay, I'm good for now, thank you.
Okay. Other general comments or questions?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
One thing that stood out during the talks, well, a few things, when Paula Wheeler came up and she said, doesn't seem like we're having the growth that we were hoping for this upcoming year. And my concern in this town has been the taxes. I mean, you know, you say $110, but look at inflation, what people have to go for grocery shopping, the fluctuation of gas, childcare, and those type of things. I mean, figures are important, but they don't tell the real story, what people are going through, particularly in communities like Adams, North Adams, and communities where, you know, salaries and, you know, hourly pay really don't cover the needs for rentals, properties, and that type of thing. So I don't know how you do it. You know, we've been told that, you know, we're going to get a tourist economy, and I believe that's the only way that we're going to build. But you look also in Adams, there's not very much land that's buildable. A lot of it's in protection, and so your ability to build new homes is tempered because of that. And I don't know, the people of Adams, I don't know, so many people tell me that they just, it's hard for them to, make ends meet. And, I can feel that in some ways myself. But anyways, I just think that we've got to find a way to, keep services good, and also try to help the people in Adams as far as being able to, at least live a, somewhat comfortable life, because a lot of people's style is being cramped, and, there's nothing you can do about grocery prices. There's really nothing you can do about child care. There's really nothing you can do about gas prices and all the other ancillary things that it takes to, live in a home and raise a family.
Two things, Joe, to your comments. One, when you talk about the land limitations, that's correct. That's also in combination with some of the commercial properties in town that aren't necessarily being utilized for one reason or another, particularly with the landlords, of not putting operating businesses in there. New growth for, again, people watching at home is essentially new businesses opening up, new houses being built. We don't have a lot of land to be able to do that. So although last year we saw a fantastic new growth number, that's not necessarily representative year over year. And what new growth does is it adds more money into the taxable tax base, which means everyone's paying into the pot with a smaller slice rather than a larger one. The other comment I'll make too, for contextual purposes, it most certainly does not take into consideration an individual's ability to pay their taxes, or what their income level is, or what type of property they have. But it's important just to note that of the 32 communities in Adams, 32 being the lowest average single-family tax bill, and number 1 being the highest, Adams is ranked 22. We're in the bottom 10, essentially, of single average family tax bill. Again, I say that knowing full well that it doesn't take the sting away from somebody having to pay it, but we are by no means anywhere near the most expensive community in the Berkshires.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you have to look at the average income of people. That makes the big difference. I mean, we're in poverty level in North Adams. I mean, people don't have the money.
Well, I just also want to insert too, Joe, that you're making a general observation, which is not necessarily incorrect, but the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department, which governs our community development, is actually saying Adams is getting slightly wealthier. Not by any great means, but if you recall conversation we had about CDBG, we're not necessarily eligible to receive as much money anymore because we're actually getting wealthier based on that economic data. Now, that's a good thing in one hand, but also on the other hand, we have to compete a little harder to get some of that grant money. So that information is tracked. Again, that doesn't necessarily, I'm not being insensitive to it, it's just important to look at that, that data. Anyone who has a home, multi-bedroom home on a single fixed income, still trying to live there, yeah, that's a pretty significant hit on that property, particularly with the property assessments going. But how do we help our folks in Adams? We work on economic development initiatives, particularly for housing, so that people can stay in Adams, they can stay in the community that they've known their entire life. They're surrounded by their caregivers, they're surrounded by their family, friends, they're surrounded by familiarity. We don't really have that option right now. And that's something that I know we're trying to work on so that people can downsize and don't feel that taxable pinch, because they have the option to downsize from their housing. So we are working on those projects too. They just take a long time to come to fruition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just make a general comment. I know that there's a lot of work that goes into this, and there was a request to get the books out to everyone earlier than we typically have. And we did receive them the first week of March. I believe I've been carrying this binder around now for 7 weeks. Thank goodness it's a bright color so I can find it easily. And we had one meeting that was an overview of the budget and a walkthrough of the kind of the first section of our binder. And then we did have 4 workshops that took a deeper dive into each of the departments. So, you know, I know it looks like it's just a single agenda item here, but there's been a lot of work that has gone into getting to this point. I want to thank the Finance Committee as well for having joint meetings, joint workshops with us. We each did our separate budget overview to kind of get some questions out there. We had some members having us look at data differently, which was good for us to see things in a different way in some different spreadsheets. And I don't know if any more paper can fit into this binder, but if you give it to me, it'll end up in this book.
3-inch binders next year.
Oh, jeez. Oh, goodness. What I'd like to do is go through each section of the fiscal 25 budget and ask if there's a board member who would like to hold that item. They're listed on the amendment to the attachment to the agenda by section. The sections should match up with the tabs in your binder, and they should also match up with the bolded header in the organizational budget summary that Crystal just provided to everybody. So if it's okay with the board, I will just read the header. I will tell you what falls underneath it, and if somebody would like to hold it, please raise your hand and we will do so. And then whichever items or whichever sections of the budget have not been held, I will ask that we take a motion to approve both sections, and then we can go back and do the individual sections. So similar to the way that we run town meeting and the way we've been doing the budget approval over the years. Does that sound okay to everyone? Okay. Then the first section would be the executive budget. Falling under executive budget is selectman, town administrator, moderator, and town report. The second section would be finance and technology. Falling underneath that section will be the finance committee, reserve fund, employee retiree benefits, accountant, technology, property and liability insurance. I will be holding that item. Section 3, general government. This is the assessors, the treasurer, debt service, town clerk, elections, board of registrars, and codification. Section 4, community development. Covers community development and Greylock Glen. Section 5, inspection services. This covers inspection services, weights and measures, and Board of Health. Section 6, public safety. This covers the police department, animal control, parking management, emergency management, and forest warden. Section 7, public services, covers council on aging, veteran services, Memorial Day remembrances, and the library. Section 8, public buildings and facilities. This will cover public buildings and facilities, Registry of Deeds, Town Hall, Adams Memorial, Adams Visitor Center, and the police station.
I'll hold that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Section 9, Department of Public Works. This covers the following 11 areas: tree warden, DPW administration, highways, snow and ice control, flood control, DPW garage equipment maintenance, transfer station, wastewater treatment, wastewater collection, cemeteries, parks and grounds, and celebrations seasonal. Section 10, Hoosick Valley Regional School District.
I'd like to hold that one.
And Section 11, Northern Berkshire Vocational Regional School District. Okay. So it looks like the only sections that were held were Section 2, Section 8 and Section 10. Therefore, if the board is so inclined, we can go ahead and make a motion to approve the executive, general government, community development, inspectional services, public safety, public services, Department of Public Works, and Northern Berkshire Vocational Regional School Districts as presented.
That's correct.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
No second.
Any discussion?
Yes,
Go ahead, Joe.
just not much of a discussion, but I just, as you had mentioned, Christine, that I'm not just sitting here and okaying everything. We've had a number of meetings. I've always felt inclined to ask questions, make comments. So I just want to let the people know that all of us here haven't just, looked at this and, gave it a mark of acceptance right away. I think there was a lot of questions asked on the select board. The finance committee certainly had their share of questions. So once again, I'm just saying that I'm not sitting here, and I don't believe any other selectman is here, and just putting a rubber stamp on this budget.
Okay. And you had something?
I had a few comments a few minutes ago, but I don't want to leave everyone thinking that doom and gloom. I am bullish on this community. We had the Greylock Glen opening, as you heard this evening, in August. I'll go with August this evening, which we believe is going to bring in, eventually will bring in some revenue for us, but also it's going to be a beautiful building and a great stop for anyone that wants to visit the mountain or hike the mountain. The Adams Memorial Middle School, very close getting that done. We have, a few weeks ago again, we have a contractor looking to renovate that building, and the town finally will have a community center, which our kids will be able to use the gym, which has been my main focus for the last 10 years, and not going to give up on that one. We have East Street, and this board is also, one of the town administrator has, as part of our vision, is to provide as much housing as we can, moderate housing for police officers, teachers, firemen, people like that. And we've made some good strides there. On Park Street, we had how many new apartments? Six new apartments that were completed this past year, and they were rented within a very short period of time. The East Street, the old community center, if you go by down East Street, I've gone down a few times, and it's amazing the progress we're making. And how many 9 apartments will be are being worked there, and they're going to be, they're working very hard at that. And I'm going to push my employer to have individuals to be able to rent brand new apartments. And also for residents of Adams who want to downsize. It's going to, we finally have apartments opening up. We also have on Park Street many, many more apartments that aren't complete, but they're being worked. We have the Adams Theater. I think it's in its second phase. I don't want to speak for anybody. Going into its third by next year, and we're off and running. Building our economy around the Adams Theater in the downtown and around the Greylock Glen up on the mountain. And we have the Adams Visitor Center, which will now become unoccupied, at least the first floor. We move the Council on Aging over to the middle school, which will give them much more room to do their activities. So we have that to use. Park Street is going to be repaved, right? And in this budget, we do have funding for repairing our roads, which is also at the top of this board's list. So there's going to be a lot of work on our streets also. So again, very bullish on this community. The police department, fully staffed, as you heard this evening. Our police department in Adams is second to none. You live in a safe community, and be thankful for that, and thank a police officer for that. Very fortunate. We have an outstanding fire department. So really, we have a great community to raise our kids, as we've always had here. We're a better community with the GE and the spread. When they left, we've been struggling a bit since, but we're coming back. And fortunate to have our town administrative board that we have, that we're going to make it happen. Just takes time, but we're getting there. People want to come to Adams. People want to live in Adams. So this budget is going to be a little bit higher, but after this, we'll start seeing the benefits of the work that we've done. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if there's no other discussion, I will. Oh, I'm
Just
sorry.
one.
Go ahead, Rick.
Why do I feel like I'm at second base at Fenway? Everything is being said. I get an echo from somewhere.
Oh, I think it's from the camera. It's me. I hear me.
Oh.
Now batting, Manny Moda.
We could talk about how it's a terrible PA system at Fenway, and there are other ballparks that have better systems. I'm just joking. But that's what it is.
They don't have as much good things to say, though.
Also on a losing streak.
It's true. All right, we're gonna get back to this vote. I'm so sorry. All in favor of the sections that have been named, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed or an abstention? That is unanimous. That brings us to section 2, the finance and technology. I do need to recuse myself from this section of the budget, as I do serve on the Maya Board of Directors, which does fall under the property and liability insurance under the finance and technology section. At this time, because we don't have a vice chair, I will ask for a volunteer to chair this part of the meeting from one of my colleagues.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody from the audience?
And if minutes can reflect that I have left the table.
I was just kidding. I wouldn't want to have a something put in for this day against me there. So just kidding. So we're on finance and technology. That includes finance committee, reserve fund, employee retiree benefits, accountant, technology, property and liability insurance. Is there any discussion, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the finance and technology sections.
We have a motion by Rick. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Joe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed none. Now return to the table.
Thanks for volunteering.
You're welcome.
That brings us to section 8, which public buildings and facilities, which was held by member Duval. This included public buildings, facilities, registry of deeds, town hall, Adams Memorial, Adams Visitor Center, and police station. The floor is yours.
Okay, just one really quick thing. This also includes facilities, which are fields.
No.
No.
No, that's under DPW.
Next one down? Okay.
Yeah, cemeteries, parks and grounds.
Forget that one. It's already been approved, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm good. I have nothing to add, 'cause I already spoke about the Memorial Middle School, so I'm good.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the public building and facilities subcategories.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed or an abstention? That is unanimous. Section 10, Hoosick Valley Regional School District, held by member Novak. The floor is yours.
Yep. The reason I brought that up is I'd made mention in the Finance Committee and to my fellow selectmen that I'm not going to vote because I'm in a conflict of interest, because I'm a substitute teacher and I'm getting a stipend or pay for doing so, so I find it inappropriate for me to vote on the school budget.
Okay, so you'll be recusing yourself?
Yes, I will.
If you could leave the table? So the Hoosick Valley Regional School District?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a public statement.
Certainly.
My son, John, is on the Hoosick Valley Regional School Committee. He is not paid. He has no financial gain based on any votes that I take this evening. and also the Board of Selectmen, as I've done for the last 12 years, is that all we do from the Board of Selectmen, we vote the bottom line. We do not have any authority to move any item in the budget, change anything. All we can do as a Board of Selectmen is vote the bottom line, and that's all I'm going to do this evening.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the Hoosier Valley Regional School District budget.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed or an abstention? That is unanimous. Member Novak, if you'd like to return. Thank you. So all sections of the budget for fiscal year 25 have been approved at this time with a final budget of, and I have Crystal and Jay who will tell me if I'm wrong, of $18,854,664 for fiscal year 25, which is a 3.62% increase over last year's budget.
You got it.
That's correct.
What is the process from here? We approved our budget, now it's the selectmen's budget, right?
The Finance Committee will meet tomorrow evening
Okay.
at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
To also review the budget and finalize it. From there, it will be put on the town meeting warrant, which this board will see at our May 1st meeting. I believe that's the first Wednesday in May, without having a calendar in front of me. And so we will see it at that point.
The only item outstanding, which is not part of the budget, but is part of the annual financial articles of the town, is our capital program for fiscal year 25, historically funded by available free cash. Just Friday morning, we received the certification as to what that number will be. So we'll have a preliminary conversation with the Finance Committee about it, and then we'll anticipate a meeting with the Select Board to determine how we spend that money this year. We just have to work out the timing. The timing, we missed it by a couple days, but this agenda was already posted at the time that we got notice, so.
So the Finance Committee, their responsibility is to recommend or not recommend the budget that we have approved by section, right? So with the funds you're talking about, you have to wait till we approve it until then they make their recommendation to town meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So make sure I get the process.
You got it. Yep.
Okay. Anything else on the budget? Okay. We're hearing none. Our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, May 1st, 6 p.m., same place. So if there's nothing else to come before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? I know, I'm so sorry. Wow, he jumped the gun there for you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
From there.